And welcome back, footy fans, to the first review episode of the Waffle Wrap Up. We are flying out to beautiful Western Australia to talk the Western Australian Football League. And joining me today, the man, the myth, the legend that is the caller and host of Around the Waffle, Mr. Paul Persick. Paul, great to see you, sir.
Great to see you, Donny. I'm not sure about the legend. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I thank you for that anyway. No, it's an exciting time here in Western Australia. Waffle season in full swing. We had the opening round of the men's competition. We're heading into round six of the women's competition, kicking off with a big top of the table clash on Friday night under the Joondalup lights. What a time for WA footy fans. And I tell you what, round one of the men's season, certified banger. And we'll tell you why in just a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and that's just a great transition for me because as we said, the first month of the women's season has gone through. We've kind of got a little bit of a table, 4 games down for each team. It's been fantastic footy, I have to say. I've been thoroughly enjoying watching these games, sitting down even in the early morning hours to sit down and watch some absolutely, as we've said before on this podcast, chef's kiss football. Let's break it down really quickly before we do the nuts and bolts breakdown. Just your thoughts of the first month of the women's competition.
I've been very impressed with the ever growing standard of the women's competition. I think it's getting better and better. The player skill level is starting to further develop. The structure of the competition is starting to get better. And, we're seeing some, much more high scoring games in the first month of competition. Not a lot of people really expected that at the beginning of the year, but you've got more star players in all the sides, even in the sides that are struggling a little bit at the bottom end of the ladder. And I've been very impressed with the sides that have quickly developed their list of players into what is a stacked lineup. Two sides in particular, Swan Districts, and to a greater extent in West Perth, who are unbeaten, 4 wins out of 4. It goes to show how exciting the women's competition is, and it's pretty open at this stage. Even though we've only played the 4 games, coming off a bye week, we head into round six with a couple of big games as far as finals implications are concerned. It's a very exciting competition. I've been very impressed with the ever improving quality of the Waffle W game.
Completely agree with that. I mean, as we speak right now, again, you only have 4 games, so we're kind of going through this a little bit, but and only one team, 2 teams are undefeated. Fremantle, East Fremantle, 3-1 with 12 points again. 6 teams within 4 points of each other. So that I mean, it's pretty insane to kind of look at it, but it'll be a lot of fun. So we'll go back a month. I know this is a little bit. We'll kind of go through it really quickly. The first round sees Subiaco with an absolute smashing over East Perth, 116-21. Claremont edging out what I thought was a very competitive game between them and Swans, 47-31. An absolute banger of a first round matchup as the defending premiers edge out South Fremantle in the Fremantle Derby 28-25, and West Perth start their season strong, 56-19 win over Peel. We got to go to the Fremantle Derby. This was an absolute classic. The Sharks edging the Bulldogs to start the season. But I have to say that Claremont Swans game that I absolutely got a kick out of. Swans were really in this. If it weren't for some wayward kicking, I think at the end they could have been there. Just fell a little bit short with wayward kicking.
Yeah, I'd have to say Claremont wouldn't have been too convinced with that performance. They could have won by more, considering that they were leading by a big margin at half time, 4-5 to 1-2. Bonza, Harkin, Orzel, and Tomplin were running rampant in midfield. You also have Maguire and Ugal Haywood in the centre and a little bit down back as well. But the way Swan Districts came back into the game in the second half, they kicked 3 goals to 3 in that one, but they were playing catch-up football, and it's never a good thing to play catch-up football unless you string a good run of goals together, you put the pressure on the opposition, and you take back the ascendancy. Swan Districts, they were playing catch up, but they weren't smashed. They didn't play a completely bad game. It was just that start and a goal of second quarter as well that set them back big time.
Absolutely. And it was good football again, and absolutely fascinating. And the Fremantle Derby was an absolute cracker. I could not Could not
Oh.
stop watching that game. Both teams really got after it. Defending premiers, tested early, get the win, and definitely one of those that always good to beat your rivals. We jump to round two as Claremont beats South Fremantle 42-27. East Fremantle beat Subiaco 41-25. Swan Districts and West Perth both with smashings as Swan Districts beat Peel Thunder 73-10, showing their offensive firepower in that one. And West Perth, as we said, a strong start to their year with a 63-8 win over East Perth. Let's go to the first game, which I thought was an absolutely cracking one between Claremont and South Fremantle. I'm looking at their score worm a little bit, and South Fremantle might want to thank their lucky stars because Claremont 12 behinds in this one. This one could have gotten ugly if Claremont could have found the big sticks.
And that's a problem that they had in the first couple of games. You know, Claremont, they struggled to convert on so many big opportunities. That scoreline of 5-12 is not pleasant reading from a Tigers point of view, but they dominated the game. Think about it, 57% to
Mhm.
43% of the possession. They had more kicks. They almost doubled South Fremantle's handball tally and also had 17 more marks. So the scoreboard really in this game doesn't tell the full story. You know, you look at how Claremont took control of that game right from the outset. South Fremantle were being kept in it because of Clermont's wayward kicking.
Definitely for sure on that one. We'll jump to round three. Unfortunately, not as many nail biters, as some would say. And unfortunately, some score lines got a little out of hand with South Fremantle handing Peel a 71-4. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, four is the final score of that one, unfortunately. And then one that I had to say, I watched this game, worried it was going to be a blowout, and ended up being quite the cracking game as Swans edge out East Perth 46-27. West Perth beat Subiaco 34-13, and Claremont get a little bit of revenge in the grand final rematches. They beat East Fremantle 45-11. I got to go to the Swan Districts game. I went into this game after I saw Swan Districts put up the points that they did against Peel, and I thought this one could get ugly. East Perth fought their absolute tails off in this game. And again, the wayward kicking is probably what you would have to say is the reason that they fell as short as they did. 3-9, 3-9. If only three of those go forward, East Perth has their first ever win in WAFL W.
But then again, you also got to look at it this way. Swan Districts, they just piled on the pressure in the last quarter. East Perth ran out of legs, as they say. It's
Mhm.
simple as that. But, you look at the contributions of Jess Wrench, Jess Verbruggen, who's one of my favourites going on at the present time, Taylor Suter seeing a lot of the football. As I said, they just ran out of legs against the Swan District side, who looked a lot more polished when they got the ball going into attack, a lot more discipline, and they just put a lot more physical pressure at the contest in that last quarter. So Swans were able to get the win, but they were given a real fright against a much more competitive Raw side.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. And then we'll jump to the last round that has been played so far, and an absolute classic to start the round as East Fremantle just barely survive a tough test from Swan District's 32-31. West Perth 4-0 to end the first four rounds as they beat South Fremantle 62-16. Claremont beat East Perth. East Perth competitive against the defending runners up 50-21, and Subiaco with a smashing over Peel 79-12. I mean, it's hard not to look at that absolute classic first game of the round, 32-31 East Fremantle Sharks. But again, the wayward kicking seems to be a little bit of a theme when it comes to teams falling just a little bit short.
But that's obviously due to some may say, and I'm not saying this is an excuse, I think it applies to some players as well. The pressure of that game when it's in the balance can sometimes get the better of players. If I can recall, it was a shot after the siren for Swan Districts. And if that had gone through, that would have at least either won them the game or tied the match. Tie the match, you share the points. So East Fremantle, I'll have to say, would be pretty relieved, the reigning premiers, that they did not blow that game right out of the door. They kicked 2 goals to 1 in that last quarter. They had a pretty healthy lead and almost threw it away. in the final few minutes. So East Fremantle, a little bit lucky, but especially when you have Gibbs, Riley, and Gomes firing at every end of the ground for East Fremantle, you can't go wrong with the Sharks at the moment, even though had a bit of a tricky start of the season, but they are in the four, and they're looking the goods at the moment in their mission for back-to-back premierships.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Again, there's a lot of footy still left to be played, but it has been fantastic first
Oh
four
yeah.
games of the round. We'll jump over to it due to some scheduling issues. Originally, we were only going to do the first four rounds of the women's, but we pushed it back a week. So let's discuss the first round of the men's because we got to be at least a little bit even here. So we'll jump over to it. Thursday night
Absolutely.
footy sees West Perth edge out Claremont in an absolute classic 75-73. Ladies and gentlemen, we will come back to this because we have to discuss this one. Move on as Peel get a little bit of revenge after the grand final, knocking off East Fremantle 82-63. East Perth start their season off strong with a nice win over South Fremantle 82-43. Swan Districts continuing to pile the pain on the West Coast Eagles is a 137-73 win for the Black Ducks. And Perth, yes, ladies and gentlemen, you are hearing it right. Perth start off their season with a win 70-56 over Subiaco. I mean, we'll talk about the classic, but before we go to that, I gotta say this was very good to see Perth start their season strong with a win over a Subiaco team that I've heard some people out west say Subiaco is very much in contention for a premiership, and Perth knocks them off in round one. Great start for the Demons this year.
Yeah, absolutely, Donny. There was a lot of added belief in that Perth side because they had come off such a tragic-filled off-season with the death of their beloved teammate Dakota Baldwin Wright, who passed away in Europe just before Christmas last year, and they paid a wonderful tribute to him before the match. And they did him prouder even more by beating Subiaco. I mean, when you look at the game, it was a game of two halves. When you think about it, the first half, as a matter of fact, was a game of two halves. Subiaco rather, started off very strongly, piled on the first couple of goals. Perth got back the initiative right on half time. They led by about two goals at half time. Third quarter came along. Subiaco through the likes of new captain Greg Clark and also Lee Kitchen, who's one of the stalwarts in the WAFL, can see plenty of the football, set up a big ascendancy for Subiaco. But then Perth in the last quarter, they just found something. It was on the ground during the three-quarter time huddle. And you could tell by looking into the eyes of the players that there was an inner strength that Coach Peter German saw in them. This is a big season. They have to capitalise on the mountain of new recruits that they have had, from Sam Simpson to VFL Premiership player Charlie Constable, who came over from the Gold
Mhm.
Coast and to play in the WAFL Knights. Just spoken to him today on Around the WAFL for an episode to be released in a couple of days. And he really enjoyed it, and it's a great environment to be in. For Subiaco, I don't usually get blunt, but it was a pretty un-Subiaco-like performance. They weren't as aggressive to the ball when it mattered the most. And that surprised me a lot. It was an unbelievable loss for Subiaco, which I think Bo Wardman will think that that'll be a wake-up call. That'll be a wake-up call, and that'll be a statement to say that Perth, they ain't going to be easy beats this year. You can bet that with the mountain of new recruits that they have got, Perth aren't going to be the easy beats anymore.
Definitely for sure. And then we have to, as a West Perth man yourself, I have to let you have a lot of fun on this one. Thursday night footy under the lights. They get a big 2-point win to start off their season strong. And I have to say this as you kind of discussed on around the waffle a little bit, and I love this. I think this initiative of playing some primetime games under the lights for the Waffle is a magnificent thing to go. And what a way to start off a 2-point win in an absolute classic, back and forth footy. Your breakdown on this, not only with your head and heart, but also as the waffle expert that you are, how good was this for the competition that you get this good a game to open up under the lights on a Thursday night?
I'd have to say this. This was a massive tick in the box for the WAFL and the West Australian Football Commission. They were looking to make the fixture a lot more flexible for fans of many demographics, especially when you've got so many clashes with West Coast Eagles and Fremantle Dockers AFL games and AFLW games later down the track as well. So they put together this flexible fixture in the aim of attracting more fans. And it only may have been the first game, but they delivered in spades. You had something like nearly 4,500 at Pentanet Stadium on a Thursday night, no
Mhm.
less, under lights, which were newly constructed lights at Pentanet Stadium. They're using those 5 or 6 times in the men's competition. And to see West Perth and Claremont, modern day rivals, that clashed in a great grand final 2 years ago and put on a memorable game. Momentum shifted back and forth, a game for the ages. And it featured, oh, believe it or not, a 9 goal last quarter, 5 goals to 4 in favour of West Perth. And then the Falcons get over the line with minutes to go, thanks to the whiz himself, Keegan Knott, with a left foot goal to win the match. When at that stage, West Perth looked gone. Claremont were playing the better football. They were doing the fundamentals. They were exerting far more pressure at the contest. Manuel and Rogers as well, firing up forward with 3 goals each. And then all of a sudden, West Perth steal it at the 11th hour to win a classic game. There ain't no better way to open the season than with a great game under lights. And I think that that is a good indication that the WAFL should be doing more night games, whether it be a Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. But the only problem is there are only 2 grounds at the present time that have high caliber lights. Pentanet Stadium in Joondalup and Mineral Resources Park at Lathlane. But I think having those games there, it adds the variety to the competition. It makes it a lot more flexible. As I said, going back to the fixture that they have set up, it's a lot more flexible. It allows more fans in to go and see their WAFL team. And that was a big, big early statement that the competition made.
Agree, completely agree on that one. So we'll jump to it. We've done all of the footy that has been played again, but there's plenty to go. We'll go to the burning questions, and it's going to start off a little bit sad. The first couple of questions for the women is going to be a little bit on the negative side, and I don't mean it in that way, but we got to discuss this. And let's start off when we kind of talked about this off mic a little bit. Is Are you surprised at how woeful Peel have been in the first month of play? Because this was a Peel team that I thought they'll be decent. I don't think they'll be fantastic. I don't think we're talking about them in flag contention, but I was not expecting the kind of woeful performances that we're seeing from them. And it is rather sad to see a club with this much history in the women's competition being not as strong this season.
I am quite surprised, to be honest. I mean, they've got a good quality of players in that side. Is it how they're developed? Is it the coaching structure? A lot of questions around this Peel Thunder side, and I'm even finding it difficult myself to fully grasp how poor and woeful. And you summed it up pretty well. They've been performing quite woefully in 2024. I mean, when you look at their record, no wins from their 4 matches and a percentage of 16. You cannot have a worse start than that. But as you said, it's still early in the season, still a lot of football to go. If they can get some wins here and there, that'll give them some good glimpses. But I would say at the moment for Peel Thunder, being realistic, look ahead to 2025.
Unfortunately, I hate doing that so early in the season, but it has been a little sad to see the results that have come from the Peel Thunder women's side. So, unfortunately, we'll stay on the negative, but a little bit more positive. South Fremantle are 1-3. They were the third team last year that everybody kind of talked about in the women's competition. 1-3 again. Yes, they've had a little bit of a tougher schedule considering they've played some of the better teams in the competition to start this year. I mean, when you start the season off, you play the defending premiers in round one. You play Claremont, the defending runners up, in round two. Then in round three, you take on a Peel Thunder side, which, as we kind of said, has not been impressive. That's their one win of the season, and then you fall to top of the table, West Perth in round four. So, should there be concern in Doggies Land, or do you kind of look at it and go, well, they've played the top three of the top teams in the competition and Peel? Maybe let's pull back on the reins a little bit on a 1-3 start.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to start 1-3 after the first month of football, especially after you've come off a preliminary final the previous year. You've got a great side, but they have been dogged by injuries, especially with Molly O'Hare and Renee Morgan not being in that side due to injury for that game against West Perth. Like I said earlier, if they were there, maybe the outcome would have been different. They are two of some of the most important players in that South Fremantle side, but you've also got some good emerging stars. Gilchrist in the roving division as well. You've got a couple of good forwards in there as well. They just haven't fired. They're missing that depth in midfield, especially with Morgan and O'Hare missing a couple of those games. But I would say South Fremantle can still make that charge to the fore because of the lineup that they've got. It's just the formula, it's just the continuity that they're lacking at the moment. So it'll be a bit tough, especially when you've got a very competitive East Perth this coming Saturday afternoon, and then you've got Swan Districts Sunday week on the 14th of April at home. These next two games at home, you've got to win both of them. Simple. You've got to win both of them if you want to have any chance.
Yeah, it's crazy to think so early in the season, and you're almost at must wins. So pretty crazy. So we've done a little bit of negative. Let's jump to the positive. And I know as a West Perth man, I see the smile whenever we talk about the Falcons. How good is it to see West Perth at the top of the table through the first month of play? I know they still have to play Claremont, so we won't jump to conclusions on West Perth is the going to be the premiers. Let's raise the flag now. Let's not go that far. But how good is it? I mean, 4-0, looking good, percentage very healthy.
It has been a bit of a surprise to an extent. I was expecting sort of West Perth, to be maybe on the fringes of the four, maybe just outside, but 4-0, I mean, that's pretty impressive. But it shouldn't come as a surprise in another extent because all of these West Perth players that you're seeing have been produced by the West Perth development system. All local, no interstate, nothing from outside, nothing from other codes. It's locally developed, great football background that the West Perth women's program has got. And especially, you talk about Ferguson, Kaufman, O'Brien, Price, Cat Bennett, captain of the side. That leadership that has been instilled by Bennett and the development that the women's program has got over there at West Perth is nothing short of brilliant. And I have to say, West Perth at the moment, they deserve to be where they be, but they won't be getting ahead of themselves because next big test coming up against Claremont on Friday night at Pentanet Stadium, and then you've got the reigning premiers. So 2 weeks in a row, you're facing the grand finalists at home. So if you can win at least both, then you can classify yourself as the real deal. But not getting ahead of themselves, West Perth. They're taking it 1 week at a time, and their coaching staff very, very impressive so far this season. But West Perth very happy with what they've done.
If we reconvene and they're 6-0 after the first 6 rounds, they are legitimately a flag contender, and they definitely stamp themselves in that particular book. So we've kind of teased a little bit. Let's look ahead just the tiniest bit. Let's go to round six and look at our schedule. What is the game in round six that you're sitting there grabbing your popcorn and you have to watch?
It's a no-brainer. It's Friday night. West Perth, Claremont, both teams 4-0, top of the table, under the Friday night primetime lights at Pentanet Stadium. I'm getting my popcorn. I'm grabbing my Pepsi. I'm grabbing some sauce. I am watching that one.
Yeah, that one looks like an absolute classic at Pentanet Stadium. I'm definitely going to have to keep an eye on that one for sure. I might even let me pull it up. It actually is not a bad time for me. 7:05 a.m. So I might actually get up and try to watch that one live because that one I think is going to be an absolute classic. So we've done the women's. We'll do a short burning questions for the men's because again, we don't have a lot. We have one game, and I never like to jump to conclusions off one game. So first week of the season, I know, but I'm going to ask this. Did any of these results sway you on how you think the competition's going to go, or is it way too early to make any assumptions off one round?
Yeah, like you said, it's only, one round of the season. We've got another 20 to go. But, the way I see it from another point of view, West Perth and Claremont, they're going to be right up there again. Claremont, is their window closing? Who knows? Of course, they've had a lot of opportunities under Ashley Prescott and with the current playing lineup that they've got to win that premiership. That's eluded them for the past 12 years. West Perth, there are a lot of players out there that are getting to their last year or two, but they've got some good young blood that's hopping over from the Colts and reserves, respectively, over the league as well. Joseph Hinder, Jasper Scaife, who played a decent first outing on Thursday night. Peel Thunder, again, they're going to be right up there. They had an impressive showing against East Fremantle, big winners there at Lane Group Stadium. And Adam Reid, he made a big genius move. Nathan Wilson, who kicked 5 goals straight, you put him as a permanent forward. He's now a Peel Thunder player alone. He's not listed by the Dockers anymore. He's got that freedom to kick big bags of goals on a weekly basis. So if you put him up forward, that's going to do wonders for the Thunder. East Fremantle, they're now behind the 8 ball, it would seem, rather than the 4 ball because they started on -4. Any loss at the early stage of the season is going to hurt. but they should be confident in the game against Claremont. They've had the wood over them in the last few years. East Perth, no Hamish Brayshaw at the moment. No worries. They still got the job done. They've got the best AFL caliber midfield out there. Talk about Brayshaw, Crowden, Scotty Jones, who came from a broken leg and dominated in the ruck. His follow-up work impressive. Oliver Eastland for Claremont dominated again against West Perth in the second and third quarters. West Coast, 14 AFL listed players. They're going to be more competitive this season, and I see them maybe a chance to give South Fremantle a fright on Saturday in the first game of round two. Swan Districts, they've flown under the radar a little bit, the Swans. You know, their round one performance, Lee Coleman, who returned to the Swans after a stint away, kicked 5 goals. He was incredible. 6 goals, rather, my apologies. They've got great South Australian in Nick Rokar, who came over from Glenelg in South Australia. Perth, as I said earlier, they're possibly going to be the surprise packet of 2024. They've got that good first up win against Subiaco. They've got great new recruits. The vision of Peter German has been brought in by the players tremendously. Subiaco, big wake up call. They've really got to step it up now against Pure Thunder at home on Sunday afternoon, because are the midfield relying heavily on the experience of Greg Clark and Lee Kitchen? Well, only they can answer that question, and only they can shape their own destinies. And I would suggest they can do that by beating Pure Thunder on Sunday.
Definitely, for sure. And then the next question, we kind of addressed it a little bit, but I do want to talk about it because as we kind of said, Thursday night was a massive tick for the WAFL with Thursday night footy. So I asked this, do you think evening footy for the Waffle going forward could be more consistent after this great performance on Thursday night?
I don't think it'll be consistent, only on the basis of that there are going to be a few Eagles and Dockers games at night, and you wouldn't want that to clash. From a
Mhm.
Waffle perspective, you wouldn't want to create a clash. So I think create that evening footy, Thursday night, Friday night, or even Saturday night, like what Perth did in round one, a day-night match, and they're going to do so again on Anzac Day. And later in the season, West Perth are going to have a Friday night game in the penultimate round, but make it in those ideal spots that do not create a time clash. You know, make it that individual standalone event. You know, let's say, for example, you have a round of football where the Eagles and the Dockers are both playing on Sunday. Case in point, both playing on Sunday. Put a Friday night marquee match in there. They're doing that for round 20, West Perth Subiaco at Pentanet Stadium. That's a big tick in the box again. So if you want to put evening footy as a consistent, only put it in the spots most ideal that don't clash with the Eagles and the Dockers.
Completely agree on that one. And I think the Waffle is trying to look ahead as much as possible on that. And the good thing is with the AFL doing the first 15 rounds or so already kind of set up like that, it makes it a little bit easier for them to do that. So I can't wait. Like I said, absolutely magnificent. Looks really, really good. Cannot wait for that to go further. So we'll get to it. We've been through the questions. We got to do a little bit of predicting. I will join this week since I've watched some footy. I will take the risk and I will jump into the prediction side of the pool. So we'll start with the ladies, but I'm going to do it in reverse order only because I have to save this West Perth and Claremont tip for last because that's the game of the round. I don't want to tip it first.
Yeah.
So we will start with Swan Districts v Subiaco at Steel Blue Oval. Who do you like in this one?
Well, Swans, they've always got a good record over there at Steel Blue Oval, and I've got my eyes on one player who I reckon can kick a big bag. Courtney Zapara, 7 goals in her previous 2 games. They're a destructive force up forward, and because of that, Swan Districts are my winners.
Swans at home, they've shown they have offensive firepower if they can get supply to their forwards. Their forwards are absolutely dangerous with ball in hand. A little bit inaccurate, but I think they've got enough. If they can give good enough supply, I think Swan Districts win this one. But I think this is a cracking game to end the round. Unfortunately, East Fremantle v Peel Thunder. I think this is a nice one for East Fremantle to kind of get a nice little win, get a lot of confidence into their squad going further to the rest of the season. East Fremantle, big win, unfortunately, here.
Yeah, I'll say is Fremantle as well. They'll get a very healthy percentage boost, and they've got the current ladder leaders, West Perth, next. So they want to get a big win, get maximum confidence heading into the Friday week's encounter.
100%. All right, the fun one. Let's see. Are you going to do it? Can East Perth knock off South Fremantle at Fremantle Oval?
This may shock the Bulldog fans, but I'm saying East Perth will get their first win of the season. Sorry, Souths. Sorry.
I love the confidence. I'm going to tip South Fremantle. I'm just not 100% sure East Perth has got that full fourth quarter performance in him to knock off South's. Yes, South is down a few players, but I think South has got just enough talent. I think they get it done. But I agree with you. I think East Perth is in this to the fourth quarter. I think this is an absolute classic. And then we'll go to it. The fun one of the round, top of the table clash, West Perth, host Claremont, Pentanet Stadium, 8:05 prime time matchup. I will tip first because I want to let you stew just the tiniest bit. I'm gonna go with the Falcons. I like the home field advantage. They have a ton of confidence going into this. Claremont's been a little sketchy going forward a little bit. I think West Perth nips the Tigers here. But I think this sets up for a fun little rivalry between these two as the season goes on, because I think right now these two are the top of the competition. So your thoughts?
Well, I'd love to see a close game like what the men delivered in round one last Thursday night. I reckon it is going to be a close game, but I reckon I'm going to go with Claremont. I'm going to say the Tigers. Their experience is really going to tell. They've got a lot of experienced players. West Perth, as I said, still developing, is a great squad, but Claremont's experience, I mean, you talk about Harkin, Nichols, Anderson, all-star lineup. I reckon their experience will just prove too much in the clutch stages. So the Tigers for me, but only by about a kick. I reckon it's going to be a cracker.
I absolutely agree. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. So we'll jump over to the men's. Start off West Coast at Mineral Resources Park, hosting the Duggies. Who do you like in this one?
I'll say South Fremantle, but I don't think it's going to be South Fremantle by how much. I think it's going to be a great contest. West Coast were very competitive up until the last quarter. They've got Andrew Gaff. He's going to have another week of WAFL and a couple of new additions to the Eagles side from AFL lists. I understand there'll be a couple more players that'll be joining Andrew Gaff in that week of WAFL against South Fremantle. But for me, South Fremantle, their depth overall and their class is going to be too strong.
Yeah, doggies win this one, but I agree with you. I think West Coast are competitive in this one. It's one of those where they might run out of steam a little bit, but I think South Fremantle will get that one done. Claremont host East Fremantle at Revo Fitness Stadium on this one. Sharks trying to find their way out of the hole that they start themselves in with. I don't think I don't know. There's just something about this one. Claremont, the old-headed team. I'm gonna have the Tigers in this one. Unfortunately, I heap a little bit more of pressure on to the Sharks trying to defend their premiership. I think Claremont get this one done at home.
Well, this one's going to be an exciting one, I reckon. I'm calling this one on the AFL app, so can't wait to get down there, Revo Fitness Stadium, to do that match. But I'm actually saying the Sharks. I'm actually going with East Fremantle on this one. They've had the wood over Claremont in recent times. They've won four of their last five, including both meetings last year. And the thing is, they never met Claremont in the finals. They had the easy part. But
Mhm.
East Fremantle, they'll welcome a couple of players back. Just who exactly will be that big question in the week leading up to that Saturday matchup. But I reckon the Sharks, they want to turn around their season. They want to start now and beat the Tigers at Revo Fitness Stadium. They have done so over the last couple of occasions, but it'll be a fantastic contest.
It will be. All right. East Perth hosting Swan Districts at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. An interesting one here. East Perth trying to find a way into the top of the ladder, continue the great form that they have been going. I like the Royals in this one. Swans had a very convincing performance. I'm interested to see going up a little bit of stronger competition. I think Swans are in this. I think East Perth just a little bit too classy in the midfield on this one, and that's where things happen. So East Perth for me.
I'm calling for a shock. I'm saying the Swans. I'm going with the Swans in this one, especially when you think about this. I think they've got a very potent combination in the making. Jesse Turner, who's been one of Swan District's established midfielders, and Nick Rokar, the South Australian, who saw a lot of the footy against the West Coast Eagles. I reckon they got that confidence boost from a much more competitive Eagles side last weekend. And I think they might just pip the Royals at the last moment. I reckon the Royals, they'll be in for a great contest against a much more competitive Swan side led under Andrew Prune's tutelage. But I reckon the Swans might cause a bit of an early season shock and beat them. And I'll give you the exact margin. It'll be a point. It'll be 1 point in it. They've had two 1 point encounters in the last 2 years, and I reckon we'll see a third.
If Rick listens to this, if he had any hair, he'd be losing it already. So love you, Rick. Love you, Rick. I say that out of love. And if that does come true, I know he will be grinning like a Cheshire cat for sure. West Perth host Perth at Pentanet Stadium, coming off the high of that 2 point win over Claremont. And Perth coming off the win, both teams 1-0. Who ends round two 2-0?
I'm going to say West Perth only because of the home record they have against Perth. I mean, Perth have a horrible record at Pentanet Stadium in recent years against West Perth. I think only one win in the last 4 or 5 years over in Joondalup. But I reckon this one's going to be another close one. Perth will be riding high from that victory against Subiaco. West Perth, so too, against Claremont. They'll bring back a couple of players. Perth, they've just got to find some goal kicking mids. That's the area that's concerning me at the moment as far as Perth are concerned. I reckon West Perth, they've just got a few more goal kicking mids. Their class will tell. It'll only be about 2 goals, I think. I think the game will be in West Perth's favour, but only by about 2 goals. It'll be a great game. Another day nighter for the Demons, which will suit them as well.
Yeah, I think West Perth win this one, but I think this is what from what I saw from that first game. I think West Perth are going to be super competitive. They're going to be in this one. West Perth just a little bit too much, but I think this is going to be a really good game. And rounding out the round, Subiaco host Peel Thunder at Sullivan Logistics Stadium on this one. I'm waffling back and forth on this one because I a little disappointed in Subi start to the year, and I know they're not going to put up two woeful performances like to start the season. But Peel are very strong. Fremantle's top side has had so many injuries, so Peel getting a win early in the year with kind of a depleted line. It'll be interesting to see on this one. I, I'm gonna go crazy on this one. I'm gonna tip a draw. I don't know. I'm just feeling a draw on this one. Your thoughts?
I never thought I'd hear someone tip a draw. I never thought I'd hear someone tip a draw. I had an episode of Around the Waffle with Mark Reddings once, the most electrifying man in the WAFL, and he tipped a draw once, and my eyes popped out of my head. You've nearly done the same thing, so I thank you for that. But in all seriousness, so I think Peel Thunder, I reckon they'll get it done. But Subiaco will play a much more better brand. I mean, they were riddled with mistakes in the last quarter when they were trying to get the ball in their forward 50 and all that, and all the ball had was Perth hands on it inside that 50. I reckon they'll play a better game, but they won't get over the line. I reckon Peel with Neil Erasmus, he's a ball magnet in midfield, got 30 plus disposals in the grand final rematch, and Nathan Wilson, you put him as a permanent forward again instead of half back, where the Dockers utilised him at. Peel are going to be 2-0. Guarantee it.
Yeah. I mean, if you twisted my arm and forced me to tip, I'd probably go with you and tip Thunder. But I don't know. There's this weird feeling like I think Subi will play stronger. I don't know. I just thought I'd be crazy and tip a draw for once. So if it somehow happens, I'm gonna chuckle and chortle all day long as I look at that. So I well, we've come to it. That's it for all of the things that I have for this. It's fantastic to catch up and to talk WAFL footy. It is great to have footy back. As I was telling a few friends of mine, I said I went from two competitions to seven competitions in the span of a couple of weeks. So I'm definitely, ladies and gentlemen, I am footied up. You don't know where. It is insane how many games I have to keep track of, considering the VFL got started, Sandful's playing, Waffles playing, plus the AFL. But I absolutely love this time of year because I've got something footy to watch every single day. And it's always great to catch up with my co-hosts. Rick Gauchi will be back next week. We thought we'd kind of go with Paul since I know Paul keeps track of the women's just a little bit more than Rick. Again, no disrespect to Rick at all. Absolutely love the guy. Cannot wait to have him back next time on the show. Paul, again, so much great stuff going on for you. I know with Around the Waffle and calling, what's on your schedule for the next couple of weeks, because we got to keep track of how you're going. What's up with Around the Waffle, and how's your call schedule look?
Well, it's looking pretty packed. It's starting to really pick up after the opening round. It was a little bit quieter in the opening round, just getting the fine tuning up, getting set for a big season. But I will be at Revo Fitness Stadium on Saturday for the big one between Claremont and East Fremantle. That's about 2:30 on the AFL app. That one's going to be a beauty. And Colts Waffle W right back into that. So as one great American caller would say, business is just picking up, and it is going to pick up in spades in 2024 and so much more. So all I can say is stay tuned.
Awesome, awesome. And to quote a very famous WA, that is centimeter perfect. So
Love it. Love it.
absolutely love Dennis Committee. Absolutely fantastic on that one. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of Waffle Roundup. Keep an eye out. More AFL, VFL, Sandful coming very, very soon to your ears. Always appreciate the listen. And we will be back again with more footy coverage in your ears very, very soon.